Good day everyone. Hope you are all doing good. In this video, we are going to see in detail about the Canterbury Tales. Also, I have used some mind mapping techniques in order to help you remember the points with ease. Also, I have given some probable questions that they can ask in the exam. It's a bit long video, but it will be helpful for you. If you are thorough with the points in this video, you can probably attend any question from the Canterbury Tales. So, watch the video fully. Let's get started. Now, we are going to see about the most notable work of Chaucer. Yes, it's the Canterbury Tales. It's a collection of 24 stories that runs to over 17,000 lines. It was written between 1387 and 1400. The tales are presented as part of a storytelling contest by a group of pilgrims as they travel together from London to Canterbury to visit the shrine of St. Thomas Becket at Canterbury Cathedral. The prize for this contest is a free meal at the Tabard Inn at Southwark on their return. It's considered as his masterpiece. He uses the tales and descriptions of its characters to paint an ironic and critical portrait of English society at the time, and particularly of the Church. Chaucer's use of such a wide range of classes and types of people was without precedent in English. Although the characters are fictional, they still offer a variety of insights into customs and practices of the time. Often, such insight leads to a variety of discussions and disagreements among people in the 14th century. For example, although various social classes are represented in these stories, and all of the pilgrims are on a spiritual quest, it is apparent that they are more concerned with worldly things than spiritual. Structurally, the collection resembles Boccaccio's Decameron, which Chaucer may have read during his first diplomatic mission to Italy in 1372. In the general prologue, 30 pilgrims are introduced. According to the prologue, Chaucer's intention was to write 4 stories from the perspective of each pilgrim, 2 each on the way to and from their ultimate destination, St. Thomas Becket's shrine, making for a total of about 120 stories. But he could able to write only 24 tales. Although perhaps incomplete, the Canterbury Tales is revered as one of the most important works in English literature. It is also open to a wide range of interpretations. Now, getting into the examination point of view, we can definitely expect at least one question from Canterbury Tales, and another one question from rest of his works. So focus more on the Canterbury Tales. This is one of the mind map, which tells you the important details about the Canterbury Tales. That is, it consists of 24 stories, 17,000 lines, the name of the inn is Tabard Inn, the pilgrims are going to the shrine of Thomas E. Becket. The structure is based on Boccaccio's Decameron. Now, we are going to see about the general prologue. The frame story of the poem, as set out in the 858 lines of Middle English, which make up the general prologue, is of a religious pilgrimage. The pilgrims are, a knight, his son a squire, the knight's yeoman, a prioress, a second nun, nun's priest, a monk, a friar, a merchant, a clerk, a sergeant of law, a franklin, a haberdasher, a carpenter, a weaver, a dyer, a tapestry weaver, a cook, a shipman, a doctor of physic, a wife of Bath, a parson, a ploughman, a miller, a manciple, a reeve, a summoner, a pardoner, the host, a man called Harry Bailey, and Chaucer himself. Now, let's move on to the major characters. First, the knight. He belongs to the ruling class, the highest among the pilgrims. When it comes to his dressing, he possessed fine horses but was not gaily dressed. That is, he rode fine quality horses, but he didn't wear flashy clothes. He wore a dark, coarse cloth that had armor stains. His physical characteristics are, he is strong because he has endured many battles. He is middle-aged because he has a 20-year-old son, the squire. His personality traits are, wise, modest, distinguished, chivalrous, truthful, honorable, generous, courteous, brave, loves action and adventure, believes in the ideals of chivalry. He must be an excellent fighter to have survived so many battles all over Europe. His reason in going on this pilgrimage is, to give thanks to God, to do his pilgrimage and render thanks. Chaucer approved this character as ever honored for his noble graces. According to Chaucer, he doesn't have any faults. He is the ideal of chivalry, honor, and bravery, the sovereign value in all eyes. To quote, a true, perfect, gentle knight. The squire. He belongs to the ruling class. He is the son of the knight. He wore a very colorful, long shirt that had wide sleeves, and dressed in red and white. When it comes to his physical characteristics, he has a curly hair, about 20 years old, average height, strong and physically fit. His personality traits are, gentle, humble, polite, carefree, happy boy. Sings and plays the flute all the day, writes poetry and songs, justing, horse riding, dancing, fought on behalf of a lady, served in the army in some wars in Holland and France and had won honors. Respectful to his father, hard-working, and willing to take risks, so madly in love with the girl. His reason in going on this pilgrimage was not mentioned. Maybe out of respect for this father. Chaucer approved this character as he was a nice young man. According to Chaucer, he doesn't have any faults. He's humble, polite, and always willing to help out his dad. Next, the yeoman. He belongs to the peasant class, servant who accompanies the knight and squire. He wore a green hooded jacket, and carried a bow and a bundle of arrows, made with bright peacock feathers. also wore a wrist guard and a sharp, shiny dagger. He also wore a silver St. Christopher's medal around his neck. His physical characteristics are, his head looks like a nut, and he has brown face, and he was strong. He knew the whole of woodcraft up and down. While his personalities are, he is ready for any occurrence in the forest, such as hunting game, or defense against highwayman attack. He looks sturdy and serious and like Robin Hood. His reason in going on this pilgrimage is accompanying the knight and squire. Chaucer approved this character as he was a proper trained forester. To quote, "He was a proper forester, I guess." None of his faults were mentioned. Next, the prioress. Her name is Madame Eglantine. She belongs to clergy class. She is a nun. She wore a pretty cloak, and a well-pressed cloth around her neck. Around her arm, she wore a rosary made of coral and green beads, and on this string of beads, hung a golden brooch with the letter A, and the inscription, Amor vincit omnia, which means, love conquers all. Her physical characteristics are, good-sized woman, elegant nose, gray eyes, small, red mouth, wide forehead. While, her personality traits are simple and shy, neat, clean, clingy, helpless, charitable, sympathetic, sentimental, tender-hearted. Her reason in going on this pilgrimage is, she is a nun, and so she must be going to a pilgrimage. Chaucer does not seem to approve this character because, he suggests that, her daintiness is too extreme. According to Chaucer, being a nun, she is too delicate. She focuses more on dressing, cleanliness, manners, and such worldly things. The monk. He belongs to the clergy class. He wore a wealthy, the finest fur lined the cuffs of his sleeves, used a fancy golden pin to fasten his hood, and wore good boots. He was bald and fat. He loved to hunt, has many elegant horses, likes modern and new things, disapprove old ideas, likes to eat, disapprove Saint Benedict's rule, that monks should live simply and devote themselves to prayer and work. His reason in going on this pilgrimage was he is a priest, but his mission is probably more self-indulgent than spiritual. Chaucer does not seem to approve this character because, he wore wealthy clothes, and hunting does not match his humble vocation. His faults, according to Chaucer, are, instead of devoting his life to work and prayer, like most monks of the Middle Ages, he spends his time hunting and eating. The friar. His name is Hubert. He belongs to clergy class. He wore a thick, bell-shaped robes like Pope, fair amount of jewelry in his robes. His physical characteristics are not mentioned. His personality traits are, happy, playful beggar, but a sweet-talking one, made more money than he actually needed, good at resolving legal disputes. He had married off many young ladies, no one who could hear confessions better than he could, persuasive at talking to women and wealthy landowners into giving him money, in exchange for listening to confessions, since bribes are easier than actual remorse. He play the fiddle and sing the sweetest songs. His reason in going on this pilgrimage was, he is a priest but his intentions are dishonest, that is, to make money off selling blessings. Chaucer does not approve this character. He is criticizing the friar, and religious figures like him, who are unscrupulous and take advantage of their religious position. His faults, according to Chaucer, instead of remaining tied to one monastery, this friar goes from one wealthy landowner to another, accepting bribes in exchange for absolution. The Franklin, he belongs to the middle class. He had a dagger and white purse. He has white beard. He is a man of leisure, confident, cheerful, and he lived for pleasure. His reason in going on this pilgrimage is to enjoy himself. Chaucer does not approve of this character, because he liked good food, good wine. He kept a buffet of food ready to eat all day. According to Chaucer, he was lucky and didn't serve a nobleman, so he was a free man. The doctor, he belongs to the middle class. He wore bright red and blue clothes, made of the finest woven silk. His physical characteristics are not mentioned. His personality traits are well-spoken, excellent knowledge of Middle Ages medical tricks, new astrology and the workings of the natural world, movement of the planets, and had studied all the great theories of disease and medicine. He knew the cause of every disease and where it came from. He and the pharmacists were well connected and were quick to prescribe drugs so that they both can get profit. He ate simple food that was nutritious and easy to digest. His reason in going on this pilgrimage was not mentioned. Maybe to make money, in case someone gets sick. Chaucer does not seem to approve this character as he did not read the Bible very much. Although physically healthy, the doctor is unhealthy in spirit. His faults, according to Chaucer, is, he seemed to be more interested in profiting from people's illnesses, than helping people to get better. The wife of Bath. She belongs to the middle class. She wore a hat that was as wide as a shield, sharp spurs, and a pleated cloak over her legs, to keep the mud off her dress. She also wore tightly laced red stockings, and comfortable new shoes, and her kerchiefs were made of high-quality fabric. Her physical characteristics are, she's somewhat deaf, red-faced but handsome, gapped teeth, large hips. When it comes to her personality, she's good at weaving cloth, lived an honorable life, and had married 5 times, rode her horse well and knew a lot about traveling, good speaker, and liked to laugh and gossip with others. She could tell lots of stories, especially romantic ones. Her reason in going on this pilgrimage was not mentioned. Chaucer does not approve her character, because she was a worthy woman and focuses on living a romantic life. Her faults, according to Chaucer, was, she got married 5 times. Next, the parson. He belongs to the clergy class. He wore modest and poor clothes. His physical characteristics are not mentioned. He's holy, virtuous, hard-working churchman, who disliked extorting tithe, that is, taxes paid to church, gave from the church offerings to the poor. He practices what he preaches. His reason in going on this pilgrimage was to help others and to find salvation. Chaucer approved this character, as the parson lives in poverty, but is rich in holy thoughts and deeds. According to Chaucer, he doesn't have any faults. Unlike the monk, friar, and pardoner, he is only the devout churchman. The summoner. He's a clergy. He's an official who brings persons accused of violating church law to court. He wore a garland on his head. He has leprosy. He looks disgusting and has red baby face with pus-filled pimples, narrow eyes, black scabby brows and thin beard. Also he is a drunk, lecherous, ill-tempered and get bribes. His reason in going on this pilgrimage was not mentioned. Chaucer doesn't approve of this character, as he is not good at his job, and takes advantage of his position, pretending to know Latin, but really knows only a few words. His faults, according to Chaucer, was, he drinks too much, and is a womanizer. Next, the pardoner. He's a clergy. He pardons people's sins for a donation to the church. He carries a bag full of fake religious relics, no hood, but a little cap on head, bulging eyeballs, has cross on his wallet, and has pilgrim medal on his hat. He has long, greasy yellow hair, and he was beardless. He's greedy, fraud, shifty, keeps money from blessings to himself, sneaky, untrustworthy, dishonest. He read and sang sermons well. His reason in going on this pilgrimage was to make money, in exchange for forgiving pilgrims for their sins. Chaucer doesn't approve this character as he is fake. His faults, according to Chaucer, was, he rides with the summoner who also takes advantage of his position. The cross on his wallet symbolizes how he uses the church to line his pockets. This is another mind map, which gives you the map of characters with their social class. Now, let's see the tales. The Knight's Tale. Theseus, Duke of Athens, imprisons Arcite and Palamon, two knights from Thebes. From their prison, the knights see and fall in love with Theseus's sister-in-law, Emily. Through the intervention of a friend, Arcite is freed, but he is banished from Athens. He returns in disguise and becomes a page in Emily's chamber. Palamon escapes from prison, and the two meet and fight over Emily. Theseus apprehends them and arranges a tournament between the two knights and their allies, with Emily as the prize. Arcite wins, but he is accidentally thrown from his horse and dies. Palamon then marries Emily. The Miller's Prologue and Tale. The host asks the monk to tell the next tale, but the drunken miller interrupts and insists that his tale should be the next. He tells the story of an impoverished student named Nicholas, who persuades his landlord's sexy young wife, Alisoun, to spend the night with him. He convinces his landlord, a carpenter named John, that the second flood is coming, and tricks him into spending the night in a tub hanging from the ceiling of his barn. Absolon, a young parish clerk who is also in love with Alisoun, appears outside the window of the room where Nicholas and Alisoun lie together. When Absolon begs Alisoun for a kiss, she sticks her rear end out the window in the dark and lets him kiss it. Absolon runs and gets a red-hot poker, returns to the window, and asks for another kiss. When Nicholas sticks his bottom out the window and farts, Absolon brands him on the buttocks. Nicholas's cries for water make the carpenter think that the flood has come, so the carpenter cuts the rope connecting his tub to the ceiling, falls down, and breaks his arm. The Reeve's prologue and tale. Because he also does carpentry, the Reeve takes offense at the miller's tale of a stupid carpenter, and counters with his own tale of a dishonest miller. The Reeve tells the story of two students, John and Alain, who go to the mill to watch the miller grind their corn, so that he won't have a chance to steal any. But the miller unties their horse, and while they chase it, he steals some of the flour he has just ground for them. By the time the students catch the horse, it is dark, so they spend the night in the miller's house. That night, Alain seduces the miller's daughter, and John seduces his wife. When the miller wakes up and finds out what has happened, he tries to beat the students. His wife, thinking that her husband is actually one of the students, hits the miller over the head with a staff. The students take back their stolen goods and leave. The cook's prologue and tale. The cook particularly enjoys the Reeve's tale, and offers to tell another funny tale. The tale concerns an apprentice named Perkin who drinks and dances so much that he is called Perkin Reveler. Finally, Perkin's master decides that he would rather his apprentice leave to revel than stay home and corrupt the other servants. Perkin arranges to stay with a friend who loves drinking and gambling, and who has a wife who is a prostitute. The tale breaks off, unfinished, after 58 lines. The Man of Law's introduction, prologue, tale, and epilogue. The host reminds his fellow pilgrims to waste no time, because lost time cannot be regained. He asks the man of law to tell the next tale. The man of law agrees, apologizing that he cannot tell any suitable tale that Chaucer has not already told. Chaucer may be unskilled as a poet, says the man of law, but he has told more stories of lovers than Ovid, and he doesn't print tales of incest as John Gower does. Gower was a contemporary of Chaucer. In the prologue to his tale, the man of law laments the miseries of poverty. He then remarks how fortunate merchants are, and says that his tale is one told to him by a merchant. In the tale, the Muslim Sultan of Syria converts his entire sultanate, including himself, to Christianity in order to persuade the Emperor of Rome to give him his daughter, Constance, in marriage. The Sultan's mother and her attendants remain secretly faithful to Islam. The mother tells her son she wishes to hold a banquet for him and all the Christians. At the banquet, she massacres her son and all the Christians except for Constance, whom she sets adrift in a rudderless ship. After years of floating, Constance runs ashore in Northumberland, where a constable and his wife, Hermenegild, offer her shelter. She converts them to Christianity. One night, Satan makes a young knight sneak into Hermenegild's chamber and murder Hermenegild. He places the bloody knife next to Constance, who sleeps in the same chamber. When the constable returns home, accompanied by Allah, the king of Northumberland, he finds his slain wife. He tells Allah the story of how Constance was found, and Allah begins to pity the girl. He decides to look more deeply into the murder. Just as the knight who murdered Hermenegild is swearing that Constance is the true murderer, he is struck down and his eyes burst out of his face, proving his guilt to Allah and the crowd. The knight is executed, Allah and many others convert to Christianity, and Constance and Allah marry. While Allah is away in Scotland, Constance gives birth to a boy named Mauritius. Allah's mother, Dungild, intercepts a letter from Constance to Allah and substitutes a counterfeit one that claims that the child is disfigured and bewitched. She then intercepts Allah's reply, which claims that the child should be kept and loved no matter how malformed. Dungild substitutes a letter saying that Constance and her son are banished and should be sent away on the same ship on which Constance arrived. Allah returns home, finds out what has happened, and kills Dungild. After many adventures at sea, including an attempted rape, Constance ends up back in Rome, where she reunites with Allah, who has made a pilgrimage there to atone for killing his mother. She also reunites with her father, the emperor. Allah and Constance return to England, but Allah dies after a year, so Constance returns, once more, to Rome. Mauritius becomes the next Roman emperor. Following the man of law's tale, the host asks the parson to tell the next tale, but the parson reproaches him for swearing, and they fall to bickering. The Wife of Bath's prologue and tale. The wife of Bath gives a lengthy account of her feelings about marriage. Quoting from the Bible, the wife argues against those who believe it is wrong to marry more than once, and she explains how she dominated and controlled each of her 5 husbands. She married her 5th husband, Jankin, for love instead of money. After the wife has rambled on for a while, the friar butts in to complain that she is taking too long, and the summoner retorts that friars are like flies, always meddling. The friar promises to tell a tale about a summoner, and the summoner promises to tell a tale about a friar. The host cries for everyone to quiet down and allow the wife to commence her tale. In her tale, a young knight of King Arthur's court rapes a maiden. To atone for his crime, Arthur's queen sends him on a quest to discover what women want most. An ugly old woman promises the knight that she will tell him the secret if he promises to do whatever she wants for saving his life. He agrees, and she tells him women want control of their husbands and their own lives. They go together to Arthur's queen, and the old woman's answer turns out to be correct. The old woman then tells the knight that he must marry her. When the knight confesses later that he is repulsed by her appearance, she gives him a choice: she can either be ugly and faithful, or beautiful and unfaithful. The knight tells her to make the choice herself, and she rewards him for giving her control of the marriage by rendering herself both beautiful and faithful. The friar's prologue and tale. The friar speaks approvingly of the wife of Bath's tale, and offers to lighten things up for the company by telling a funny story about a lecherous summoner. The summoner does not object, but he promises to pay the friar back in his own tale. The friar tells of an archdeacon who carries out the law without mercy, especially to lechers. The archdeacon has a summoner who has a network of spies working for him, to let him know who has been lecherous. The summoner extorts money from those he's sent to summon, charging them more money than he should for penance. He tries to serve a summons on a yeoman who is actually a devil in disguise. After comparing notes on their treachery and extortion, the devil vanishes, but when the summoner tries to